feel like Zach just started to touch on the thing that I most focus on with what he said right now, because look at how look at how a lot of people play the game now. And obviously we don't have access to the data to say how many people it necessarily is, but the top end and the like heroic rating, for example, is just a very different dynamic. The top end raiders that have a huge amount of attention on them with different things like the world first race and Twitch in general are going to be doing the most degenerate things that they can to give themselves any advantage. They're going to have 4 of each class with every single covenant, so they can come in the case that there is the subtlety rogue situation where you can just spam out your Phantom Knives and be able to funnel all that combo point finisher damage into the target that you're trying to get down, right? Obviously, that was a broken thing. They had a bunch of rogues ready to go for that. Now, when that gets watched by the average player, that what you go, oh, okay, it's the same as if you're playing Fortnite and you're watching Ninja crank 90s with the boys. Poggers, dude, this is how we do it. Now everybody thinks that you need to go that degenerate play style to be able
to every night for me.
Just watching, just cranking 90s with the boys.
No, just watching Ninja. Yeah, watching Ninja every night. Play Fortnite.
Oh, man.
Dude. Yeah, 2020.
Can we wrap this up? What's up?
Yeah, what's back? Dude, he's back. But yeah, I think like the main thing is though now is all of a sudden the way that people actually look at the game is different, and the way that people play the game is very different. That element of progress that you can have on your own pace with the people that you play in an expansion, that's a thing of the past. In Burning Crusade, a lot of people, they were inside of Karazhan when a bunch of other raids were out, right? Because they hadn't downed that boss yet. Eventually they got all the gear. Eventually they were able to progress, and you progressed with your guild rather than just the patch. You played the expansion with your guild and you beat it. Now, the second that a raid's done, you get loot thrown at you to the point that you're choking on way too much loot. You don't have any identity with that loot as a character, so you're not working towards that identity on your character sheet. And you're just looking at people that are playing the game in a way that you most likely won't even play it, racing to get things done and then boost people in the game.
Yeah. You touched on a lot of different things there. Where to go with this discussion?
I got mad. Sorry.
That's all good. But yeah, definitely so here's the PSA part of this whole thing is, I'm going to do you all a favor and tell you, if you get benched because you're not the right covenant, we've done you a favor, right? Because you're going to find a group or a guild that actually doesn't care that much about that, and you're still going to knock all the bosses down, but you're going to have a way better time because you're with a bunch of people that are more fun to hang out with or are more in tune with what you're trying to do, right? Because what you talked about right there, Rich, was getting through the content as a guild, right? Getting through it. And those are the things we remember. We don't remember the items. We don't remember we remember some of the items, but only because they're a reflection of the experiences that we had, with that group of players. And that's what's more important, right? In terms of total experience, right? Because are we still if I were to ask you what's more important, how fast we finished the raid or that we finished the raid, which one of those is more important?
How fast?
Really? Okay. Yeah. So even for people that aren't doing world first or within the top 10 results, or
see that wasn't how it used to be though for me.
What matters more is still how fast, because I guess the pressure is if you don't get it done fast enough, then the new content comes out and it invalidates the whole point of knocking the boss down. So you're always on this clock.
I feel like people used to play the game because they enjoyed playing with other people. That was why I played the game. I had a lot of fun and I liked to loot a lot, and I played a bunch of different characters to try to get loot on those characters. And I just enjoyed playing with people. And I played on, I had server identity. I played on Nathrazim. And I was in 3 or 4 different guilds, just hanging out with people, and that was what I loved to do. It wasn't about speed. Half the time we would
Yeah. And that's the type of thing that I certainly designed the game for, was that sort of experience. I also designed it for people that just want to bury their head in the latest degenerate strats and knock that boss down as quick as possible. But I didn't make the game only for that person, right? I also made the game back in the day for what you're talking about, Rich, which is chilling with the homies and knocking bosses down at a more relaxed rate, you know.
It was like I had
Feeling
like the
good.
one guild that I went super hard with, but I don't even remember those memories as much as I remember like being in the scuffed group. Like I have a memory. This is even in Wrath of the Lich King. We were doing Galuth, and I need to respec like 7 times because we just had a terrible group composition. I remember that night of just trying all these stupid things, and then all of a sudden we finally managed to get it down, and we laughed about it, right? And I remember like the first time that you went in and you had people dying to like Frogger and like stupid shit like that. Like that was what the game was about. And now everybody's just you have like a few angry neckbeards left who kind of want to wrap their entire identity up in the game still and want to think that they're world first completionists. And then you have a bunch of people that their casual interest just isn't there nearly as much because the zeitgeist of gaming maybe changed, and they just want to instantly drop in, get instant gratification in different things like like battle royales and things like that. And I think the game has done a weird thing of trying to bridge those gaps. It's like sometimes it feels like the game's trying to attract every player that doesn't want to play it and forgetting its core audience. And then sometimes it feels like it goes way too far for hardcore.
Because like in the fast argument, like you were saying, Asmongold, how fast is what matters.
Oh, I have fun doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly fun. I worry that this would just be the cynic in me, but I worry that some people are trying to finish it because they're not particularly enjoying it. Does that make sense? Like,
I do. Yeah. Get out of it as quick as possible.
Yeah, like get it done so I can have fun, or I can do crazy things, or we talked about a little bit of this last time, and the freedom of being done with the expansion, right? Like, I'm addicted to heroin. I got to get through this heroin.
That's gonna be a bad clip, bro.
Yeah.
so that I can go to the store and get some vegetables, right? Like,
yeah.
I just want this heroin trip to end so I can be functionally, useful again.
I think that it's similar to that. Yeah. I mean, to a degree.
That in there, right? So obviously not everyone. Some people just generally like competition is obviously a huge thing, right? Like people love to compete and they love to be able to flex on everyone around them when they compete, right? So I totally get that. But I worry there's a lot of people that are kind of generally exhausted with the treadmill, but they keep running,
Well, I think that the thing for me is I agree with you with guilds, right? Is like finding a guild that's okay with you not being perfect all the time is okay. I generally agree. And I think that it kind of dovetails into a bigger issue where more of the player base now pugs than they used to. And there's less general guild play. And you don't really have like that trust that you build up with the guy that you've raided with and talked to for like 4 years. And so he's going to do his best in a raid, even if he doesn't have the right covenant. And I think that's really where a lot of the problems arise. And I think that's kind of one of the issues overall with the game is that people just look at your number. Like, are you familiar with Raider.io score?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so they look at that number, they look at another number that they're able to quantitatively evaluate somebody with, and that's all. Yeah, that's all you're worth. And I think fundamentally that's a problem with the social structure in the game because you don't have reasons to make friends, and you can just replace people in seconds.
Yes.
Like whenever I did classic WoW, like if you were in Scarlet Monastery and your tank didn't know how to taunt, you're going to teach that tank how to taunt.
Yeah.
Because your alliance...
Because it's going to take an hour to get a new one.
It's going to take an hour to get a new tank. It's going to be faster to teach
2 minutes
that
to tell them how to push a button.
Exactly. And so I think that's something that's been lost over the years, especially with like the group finder and just generally kind of throwaway social interactions. And I'm not sure really... Where do you think that really started to happen with WoW?
Definitely started with Dungeon Finder.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to also go back to the subtlety rogue thing you mentioned before, where the subtlety rogue was just super overpowered for a while. How long did it take Blizzard to fix that, if they ever did?
Pretty quick. I think they fixed it
Okay.
after that tier was over. I don't remember
I think
exactly.
I think it was after Old Deer. I mean,
Yeah.
it was it did not only impact that boss. Basically, it was how subtlety functioned. Subtlety you get pretty
Mhm.
much put in the dirt. You could do big pulls with subtlety even in dungeons,
Okay.
and they're fan of knives. They would just basically get a shitload of combo points and be able to funnel all their finishing
All
point
right.
damage into their prio target, and it's just like you had ads
Okay.
on that encounter. So
Okay. So that's the case, because that's bad design, right? Like I don't think they intended for that to happen. I think that just accidentally happened,
Yeah.
and it was something they needed to fix. But people are worried that that's going to happen again with the Covenant thing, right? Like we're going to have certain bosses where this just happens. So there's a lack of trust there going in that the subtlety rogue experience isn't going to happen
but at the same
at that
time,
level and frequently with the
yeah.
Covenant
So
dynamics.
you say that the subtlety rogue thing is bad design, which I think
Mhm.
honestly is a reasonable take on something like that. But I feel like there's been a fear for a really long time to put anything in the game in case
Mhm.
that happens. Like even
Right.
with reflect, right? Like that's a mechanic you really don't see in the game very often anymore. Do you think that it gets to a certain point where, as a developer, we potentially see them be too scared, and that's why the
Yes.
homogenization
Yeah.
happens?
That's why they're in the corner. I talk about the corner they've designed themselves into, and so that's within that context, right? That's why people are so angry about covenants, because covenants are an attempt to push their way out of that corner.
Mhm.
But everyone's just worried about like the realities of, well, you're going to create another subtlety rogue situation, and
Yeah.
and then the covenant, what covenant I am, matters more than anything because of this broken combination of variables.
I think there's a lot of that. People are just concerned based off of what's happened in the past with like
Right.
Legion Legionaries being very overpowered, certain Azerite traits being very overpowered, and just completely eclipsing other things.
Yeah. And so I guess the question is, do you want to get out of this corner, or do you like this corner? Is the corner comfortable? Do you want to just keep working the corner with safe bets and no meaningful choices? And right. And there's
Yeah.
obviously different answers to that, but different people want different things. But yeah, they're trying. That's what covenants are, an attempt to get out of the corner, right?